We have a new rules drop, which is the massive things from the upcoming Armageddon book. We've got points, we've got rules, we've got detachments. Many of these we've already seen. Starting with the ones we've already seen, Intranzia Fraye. Yes, very good unit, but too many points at 150. That is more than 10 Sacrosancts. That is more than 2 Mortifiers. That's more than 10 Sisters with a Dialogus that I was going to use in a combo with her to make the unit especially good. I think we're about 30 points over the cost. So too many points for a support piece. She's good, but I don't think 150 points of good. If sales of the model end up being pretty low, Games Workshop might lower the points cost to encourage more people to include her, either soon or in next edition. Probably that one. Otherwise, as the saying goes, in 10th edition, dog martyrs cannot be used well, whether on foot or on a chair. At 100 points, whether you use him as an Imperial agent or as an ally in a different army, Inquisitor Kroyle is pretty good, but mainly pretty good for an Imperial Agent's army. I wouldn't recommend him in other factions. Like, the Imperial Guard would like to have full rerolls to hit on a block of 20 Imperial Guardsmen. That'd be good for their las guns. Fire by rank, 3 las gun shots per model. Use Purging Fire in the Grizzled Company to get lethal hits. Reroll every hit roll that's not a 6 to try and get more lethal hits. You could do the same in the Combined Regiment detachment. Shoot at an infantry unit. You have lethal hits. Fish for those 6s to get more lethal hits. There'll be a couple of plasma guns that will also get the bonuses, but remember that you're mainly boosting las guns when you're doing this. 100 points for better las guns. That can be good. It won't affect any of the attached command squad or characters, as they are not battle line models. Kroyle's ability to give you rerolls only affects the models. You need to have the keyword to affect a model. I really think Games Workshop needs to capitalize or block capitalize when it says models or units. People miss that and don't know where in the rules or rules commentary this rule on models compared to units is. It's something I struggled with at the start of 10th edition to find and understand, and unless it's in the 11th edition rules, people will continue to struggle with it. Inquisitor Kroyle could help out a Bastion task force of Space Marines with their battle line focus, but if you want an extra special Super Terminator squad to get full rerolls to hit, remember it's the shooting phase only, and they are not battle line, even if you add the character with the hero of the chapter enhancement, because that enhancement makes the character model a battle line model, and sure, that is a battle line unit for the detachment purposes, but the other models in the unit are not battle line models, so Kroyle's rerolls would only affect the one character, and most Space Marine characters are hitting on a 2 or a 3+ anyway. They're not desperately in need of a reroll. But what do the Space Marines get as far as detachments? Well, there's one that Deathwatch players of a certain kind may like. The Armored Spear Tip. So when Adeptus Astartes disembark from a transport that made a normal move or an advanced move, the disembarked unit can disembark and then move d6 inches, or make a normal move of d3+3 if they got out of a heavy transport. A heavy transport is defined as a vehicle with 14 or more wounds, like a Land Raider. Unfortunately, it excludes aircraft. So the Corvus Blackstar, which has 14 wounds, which would be considered a heavy transport, cannot be considered a heavy transport, which kind of kills a lot of the fun you would have from the transport detachment. Which really begs the question, why do we have a new battalion box that is a Corvus Blackstar and 10 Deathwatch Marines? There's no detachment specially for them, which is what you'd expect with a tie-in product for a tie-in book. It's still a transport, but it also cannot be affected by the rapid deployment rule, because that also excludes aircraft. So you've got to be a Land Raider and Rhino focused Deathwatch player to make the most use out of it. If you have Centurions, then Centurions can move a bit faster. Transport moves forward, they disembark, they move some inches, but you cannot make a normal move of more than your movement characteristic. So if you roll a 6, they're not going 6. With some extra inches of movement after disembarking, I was thinking, okay, well, if we can't use Corvus Blackstars, what if we had a Land Raider arrive from reserves, then disembarked, moved a bit, then we have a much shorter charge, and then we charged. But you cannot disembark and charge when disembarking and coming from reserves. And I don't think the Land Raider's assault ramp gets around this. You need to have made a normal move to use the assault ramp, and arriving from reserve counts as a normal move. It's explicitly not a normal move. That's how the counts as rule works. At least in 11th edition, this will be called an ingress move, so things will make more sense. I really wish this worked on the Corvus Blackstar so it could be good. Then you could have a flying rapid response army. But with Land Raiders, there's a stratagem to move through terrain like it could fly as if it was a Corvus Blackstar. Advanced deployment. The transport can advance and then the people can disembark, and you can charge if the transport is a Land Raider with assault ramp. Machine Wrath, move before rolling to see if you explode. Explode onto more people or get your troops onto an objective so that even though they disembarked and in emergency disembarkation, then they're battle shocked, but in your next turn, they'll get their objective control back and then you will control the objective. Rapid embarkation to having moved your Land Raider, disembarked and charged from your Land Raider, killed the enemy, get back in the Land Raider. Then you're safe. Then it isn't a one-way trip to get rid of a screen or an enemy transport. You can kill a thing and get back into safety. You're not trading units. The enemy will have to kill your Land Raider. And Purgation Doctrine is the most unusual one. You get +1 to hit. Any Adeptus Astartes unit gets +1 to hit. But if it was a unit that disembarked from a heavy transport, it gets +1 to hit and wound. That first +1 to hit makes no mention of needing to disembark. That you could put on a Corvus Blackstar. It's an Adeptus Astartes unit. Now its missiles and las cannons will hit on a 2+. So if you like your Rhinos and your Land Raiders, and that kind of mechanized force, that's a pretty good detachment. More sad news for Blackstar enjoyers. Blackstars can't be tank aces in the Headhunters detachment because units that fly cannot be tank aces. Nor can walkers. I had this lovely idea of a Ballistus Dreadnought and Corvus Blackstars being the tank aces hunting down enemy vehicles, but it's not going to happen. There's nothing very Death Watch about the Headhunters detachment. It's for a very generic Space Marine army that wants a few big tanks. In terms of flavour, you could say it's Iron Hands. I don't play Orcs with any regularity to have an opinion on the transport or speedy detachment. If the Cult of Speed hasn't gotten any better since their codex, then maybe there is a suitable replacement here. But we can talk about the Imperial Guard things, because Imperial Guard units can be brood brothers for the Genestealer cult. So the Centaur RSV, it's pretty cheap, but it's 85 points. The same points as a Chimera and more points than a Taurox. I assume this would be a very cheap box, like 60 points. You put some models in it, you move towards the enemy, and it explodes, because it's so weak. It has firing deck of 12, which is better than the Genestealer cult's cult truck. That only has firing deck 6, but that doesn't mean you can put your neophytes or your acolytes with hand flamers into the Centaur. It can only transport Imperial Guard models, so in our army, it's Brood Brother models. Katachan heavy weapon teams are a good option. Then, if everything inside can scout, this dedicated transport can scout. Or you could do that in a better armored Chimera that has better guns, and you can still fire 2 guns from the heavy weapons inside. Firing deck 2. The Centaur has a special rule that makes it objective control 6. More likely you'll be objective control 5, it's hard to get 12 models in a unit. But that only really works on units that the enemy has to outscore on objectives instead of kill pretty easily. The Centaur is a unit that the enemy will destroy rather than try to bully off an objective. It's toughness 7. It's pretty weak. Melter guns will wound it on a 3. That's very rare in 10th edition. A better choice is probably the Hippogriff AFV, the totally not trying to be a Conflict 47 light tank. But it's very World War II inspired. And in theory, if we're going off the roughly 18 months it takes for Games Workshop to go from concept to model to release, they saw Conflict 47 come out and thought, uh-oh, we need to have something like that we can aesthetically present ourselves as better than. So a cheaper 70 points. And we have several weapon options: heavy las cannon, melter cannon, Vigilator Cannon, or Gatling Cannon. You don't need more anti-infantry shots, so we don't get the Chiron Gatling Cannon. The Vigilator Cannon can have quite a lot of shots at strength 8 and damage 2, that's the Space Marine killer, only AP -1. I like the Melter Cannon best. You get twice as many shots as the Las Cannon, and it's better damage and armor penetration when factoring in Melter as a rule. It also has another Melter gun for a dedicated role. Move fast, shoot, and then hope you don't roll a 1 as you move sideways behind cover and out of line of sight. A Ridge Runner will perform better for the Genestealer cult, but as a unit that is pretty cheap, can cause damage, and gives a detachment bonus in the Brood Brothers Auxilia, if you want to use that rule, use the Hippogriff. Even if you're not using the integrated fire rule and just want good vehicles, you have another pretty good, pretty cheap tank to back up your cult in the Brood Brothers Auxilia. It's a very fun detachment once you get going with it. Check it out in detail and see what you think. And have a great day of 40k.